Thanks for joining us today. My name's Eileen Ewan, and I'm the Managing Director for Gallagher's Financial Institutions practice. I'm joined by John Farley, the Managing Director of our Cyber Liability practice. Hi, John.
Hi, Eileen. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me. So, John, today we're going to talk about the cyber landscape for financial institutions. I know you just published a white paper for a 2022 Outlook, but I'd like to take a step back, just look backwards for a minute at 2021. Can you talk to me a little bit about what the cyber threat environment looked like in 2021 for financial institutions?
Yeah, well, it certainly was a difficult environment for all of our clients, and really not only for FI clients, but clients across all sectors. Ransomware was certainly the attack method of choice. Hackers were basically driving claims to a rate where it hardened the market in a way that it hadn't been hardened before. We saw ransomware claims. If you look back in 2020, where we had a full year of data, we saw a total of about 416 million paid in extortion, which is no small number. But then when you look to 2021, in the first 6 months alone, we had 590 million paid in extortion. So eclipsed that year in the first 6 months by a lot. So as we get the full year of data in, I expect that number to go up. And that's the numbers that we have reported. I believe that number is going to be even higher because it's going to be claims that were not reported. So definitely that has been a driver. But secondly, supply chain attacks was also a really big problem for the industry and for our clients in general. We saw hackers pivoting to key players in the supply chain, and these would be software providers or email platforms, where the hackers knew, if they got through one of those, they can get to potentially thousands, if not millions, of other organizations. So these attacks were well planned, they were sophisticated, and they impacted so many organizations. And so that really got the underwriting community nervous. It got them worried about exposures that they weren't even thinking about. So that was a really, really big challenge throughout 2021. And we don't expect that to slow down. We think that is going to continue throughout 2022.
Thanks, John. So I also wanted to ask you about regulatory risk. You mentioned it in your white paper, and certainly, for banks and other financial institutions, regulatory constraints are something they pay quite a lot of attention to. Could you talk a little bit about that from a cyber perspective?
Yeah, sure. Regulatory risk is an area of cyber risk that I think not enough of us focus on. I think, regulators, especially at the federal level, in the FI space, have paid very close attention and have issued some really stringent regulatory laws and regulations over the last year. So in November, for example, we had the federal regulators issue what is called the final rule, meaning now when an organization has what they called a significant computer security incident, they are now required to report that incident to the regulators within 36 hours. So 36 hours, that is just no time at all when you think about investigating a computer security incident, especially one that's significant. So, that could be 36 days. It could be a lot longer than 36 hours. You're just not going to know really what happened in that amount of time. So you're going to have to figure out how to satisfy that mandate while investigating the matter and providing relevant information to your regulators. So that's, I think, going to be one of the very big challenges from a regulatory standpoint in 2022. Now, that goes into effect in May, so there is some time to prepare. And so preparing your incident response plan and getting key players engaged, both internally and externally, to help you investigate a matter is going to be paramount and one of the key ways to help satisfy that mandate. So be really mindful of what's going on at the federal level in terms of regulation, because that's going to come into play for sure in 2022.
Great. Thanks, John, for touching on that. So thinking as we move forward, what challenges do you see for financial services organizations as they try to navigate the cyber insurance marketplace, as difficult as it is?
Yeah, first of all, rates are going to be going up for sure. They've been on an upward trend the last couple of years, and we expect more of that. But secondly, what you're seeing is the underwriting community pivoting in terms of how comprehensive their cyber policy is in what they cover. So take ransomware attacks, for example. We are now seeing cyber carriers cut the limit in half in the form of co-insurance when you have a ransomware attack. So let's say you had a $10 million policy for cyber, but you had a ransomware attack. That ransomware attack may be limited to half that amount. You're not going to get coverage for the full $10 million limit. So those are co-insurance requirements as well being imposed. So sublimits, co-insurance, all of that really designed to help a carrier limit their own exposure. So certainly pushing back on our clients. So that's going to be a really big challenge. But on the flip side, we're there to help our clients prepare to get in front of that underwriter to demonstrate the fact that they've got proper controls in place to prevent or mitigate the effects of a ransomware attack. And it's our hope as our clients' advocates to help them get a more comprehensive policy, perhaps negotiate some of those sublimits or co-insurance requirements out if we can. But it really is going to take a lot of work on the client side to help demonstrate that they've taken the data security control issues seriously and they're up to speed and they're up to date. And so it's really going to be an interesting market as we move forward into 2022. But there's certainly challenges, but there are opportunities as well to help navigate that space.
Great. Thanks, John. Yeah, it's an important point you make about clients having a hand in how this all plays out, because really it's based upon their own internal controls and responsiveness. So thank you for pointing that out. Speaking of which, what do you think can be done to help improve risk management in the FI sector?
Yeah, so a lot of times we look right at the current cyber insurance carrier, who's the current carrier, right? And that carrier is going to provide oftentimes cyber services, right? And they could be employee training, that could be scanning, that could be incident response planning help, and all of that comes with your policy either at a discounted rate, and sometimes there's no cost at all to it. So really, the first thing I ask our clients to do is focus on what you have right in front of you, right? And then from there, you can develop your risk management program. But really, that is just so important because from an underwriter's perspective, you've taken advantage of those services with a vendor that they've already vetted, and they know that those services are really important and valuable, and they serve to prevent or at least mitigate the effects of an attack. So clearly, that's where I start, and there's a lot more we can do in terms of helping our clients get to a place where they're at a mature cybersecurity posture. But certainly, that's where we start.
Great. Thanks, John. So now thinking ahead and looking ahead into 2022 and beyond, what's your take on what's ahead? Who's going to shape the future, and what are some of the challenges and opportunities for financial institutions as we look forward?
Well, I certainly believe that we're in a hardening market right now, the following year and this year and the year after, actually. So where we
Okay.
go from there is going to be an open question. I mean, there's an optimist in me that says, you know what, we have taken this really seriously. Our clients are taking it seriously. The right questions are being asked prior to renewal, and those answers are getting to an affirmative place where we know they've got the controls in place that perhaps they didn't have in years past. So I
Sure.
think there's been a difficult sort of process in getting down to the details and the requirements for a more secure environment. And it has been easy. But I think that ultimately that's got to pay off, right? That's got to pay off in the form of less frequency and severity of cyber claims, and in return, perhaps the market can get to a softer place than it is today. So that's the optimist in me. We'll really have to see where this goes, though, because as we know from history, hackers have evolved in ways that we never expected them to. So we've got to stay one step ahead. I think we can, but it's going to take a lot of work from an insured's perspective, from a broker's perspective, and some cooperation from the carrier side as well. So really, this is going to be a team effort for sure.
Great. Thank you, John, and appreciate that. Clearly, working as a team here between our two practice groups and poised to continue to do that for clients as we navigate the 2022 cyber marketplace. Thanks for joining me, John.
Thank you.